Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It seems like it wasn't a very auspicious beginning to the day with this drenching rainstorm. I know many of you got caught in it. After weeks of a drought, it would be our luck. Before we begin, I'm going to make the usual request to please silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And I'll call the meeting to order now. Have we got copies of the minutes? I didn't see a copy.
You need a copy. Chair.
Yep. Okay. If you haven't looked over the minutes from our April 15th meeting, please do so now. I'll take a minute to do that. Sorry, April 13th. May I have a motion to approve these minutes? Motion to approve. Any second? Second. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Any corrections to be made? Hearing none, I'll ask how many are in favor of approving the minutes as circulated. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved as circulated. The second item on our agenda will be my report to the chapter. So on behalf of our board of directors, I welcome you to the chapter's fall meeting. I will discuss some of the activities and issues that the board has dealt with since we last met in April. On September 14th, the UIC Academic Professional Advisory Committee, APAC, and UIC United co-hosted a panel forum entitled Public Policy, Politics, and Pensions, Addressing Illinois' Desperate Fiscal Situation. The panel members were John McCarran, freelance writer and contributing columnist for the Chicago Tribune, R. Eden Martin, president of the Commercial Club of Chicago, Ralph Martire, executive director of the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, and Addison Woodward, member of the Illinois Board of Higher Education. The moderator was our own Irving Miller, past president of UIC United. We're also fortunate in having a technologically talented member, Jim Limber, who recorded a video of the forum. The video is now archived at www.ustream, that's the letter U, STREAM.TV, where you may view it, as well as President Eikenberry's presentation at our spring meeting last April. Jim is recording today's program, and you may view it and past recordings at this website by entering the phrase UIC-United in the search box at the top of the page. Let's all give Jim a big hand for his efforts in making our program available to SUAA members beyond the geographical limits of the Chicago metropolitan area. Thank you, Jim. The PowerPoint presentations of Mr. Martin, Mr. Martire, and Dr. Woodward may be accessed from the chapter's News and Announcements webpage. The efforts of Program Director Donna Knudsen, Social Director Rose Kirk, and Political Involvement Director Dick Johnson made the program a huge success. Several delegates from UIC United attended the SUAA Fall Board of Directors meeting on October 5th in Champaign. Representative Chapin Rose, Republican of Charleston, gave an excellent presentation on how he would deal with the state's critical fiscal situation. His suggested solutions include a variety of approaches: a freeze on new spending, budgetary cuts, borrowing, and increased revenue. It was clear to this observer that Springfield needs more legislators with the kind of vision demonstrated by Representative Rose to confront the massive deficit and revenue shortfall that the state faces. I urge you to look carefully at the choices that you are given in the coming election and to be sure to vote. As we shall hear later this morning from our featured speaker, William Mabe, the new Executive Director of SERS, our pension fund faces major challenges. As he did at the SUAA meeting, I expect that he will emphasize the need for SERS to receive its full contribution from the state this year and every year. We have already heard warnings of what might happen should there be no contribution this year, namely a liquidation of investment capital to the tune of about 10% of assets. The SUAA delegates also heard from SUAA lobbyist Dick Lockhart, who told the gathering that he expects to see legislation in the November veto session in Springfield in support of borrowing to meet the state's needs. Making a reference to the passage of SB 1946 last March, which established a two-tier pension system for state employees, he warned that more pension-adverse legislation could be expected in the future. Now, by the way, I thought it would be interesting to point out that my own state senator recently mailed out a brochure describing the accomplishments, if you want to call them that, in Springfield. And in one article entitled "Tackling the Unfunded Pension Liability Crisis," full page in this brochure, he discusses the specific parts of the new legislation, SB 1946, as they apply to new employees. I was a little bit disturbed over the fact that he had to go into such detail about the new benefits to an audience of general constituents. So, the UIC United Board believes that it is essential that our chapter be granted the capability to have SUAA dues deducted from the paychecks of our members who are employees of the university. Despite the fact that we have made repeated requests of the university's Office of Business and Financial Services, and have even made entreaties to the present and past presidents, we have not received favorable responses. SUAA chapters in all of the other state universities in Illinois, as well as those in numerous community colleges, enjoy this privilege, a privilege that we deem critical for expanding as well as maintaining our membership. Several board members have discussed this issue with our counterparts at the UIUC chapter, and we are in agreement that we should continue to pursue this issue with the university president's office. To that end, Sue Sindelar, Dick Johnson, and I will join several members of the UIUC chapter's board to meet with the president's chief of staff within the next 2 months to discuss this issue. Finally, with my hat on as webmaster, I want to remind you to please give me your current email address if you've changed it, say, in the last 6 months, and to please use your email account. Stay current on developments in our chapter by visiting the website at www.uic.edu/orgs/SUAA. Are there any questions that I may answer?
Why aren't you getting a response on that issue of the you had mentioned?
Dues deduction?
The,
We've gotten a response. It hasn't been favorable.
well, why?
The excuse that we've heard repeatedly heard from apparently the business office, the central business office, is that it would be too expensive to implement. And with the banner system that they have. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that's the explanation that we've heard from some of the people down there in Urbana over the past few years. We've heard this from, I think it was Joe White. We heard it from Stan Eikenberry, and now we've heard it from President Hogan. So we hope that our meeting with the Chief of Staff, the President's Chief of Staff, will allow us to get these details out in the open and see exactly what the problem is. And if there's an issue, say, of initial cost to implement the dues deduction, well, then maybe we can consider paying towards that cost. Yes, Dave?
Just to get a comparative sense of the extent of the numbers of people that might be involved, for those institutions which have approved this process, how many people are they talking about on the currently employed that would be in this system? I mean, what are we talking about? 1,000 people, 500 people, X? What is X?
It's hard to say. Sue, the question, in case you didn't hear, was what are the numbers of people we're talking about that would be concerned with this issue? Yeah.
For UIC United, I assume you're talking about.
No, I'm interested in the comparison by the other institutions that have approved this system. How many people? Are they handling 2 people, 10 people, 1,000 people? In other words,
well, I think after talking to some of the chapter presidents, I think it's in the neighborhood 30–40% of their membership.
Well, I'm speaking just for UIC United, and I was going to mention that in my report. We currently have only 44% of our numbers, of our membership numbers, are dues deduct. That means 56% we're looking at either annual dues or 2-year dues that we lose. You know, it's a revolving door type membership. So only 44% of our base. So that means we have to continue to increase our numbers and retain our numbers, which we're not. Both of them aren't happy. We're increasing our numbers, but we're not retaining our base because of that.
So Sue, you're saying it's about 56% of our total membership, which is approximately 1,600 plus members. That would be the numbers that would, people that would be eligible for dues, current employees that would be eligible for dues deduction. It's a significant number.
Carol, I think it would be interesting to know beyond UIC what the numbers are on some of the other state institutions, so we see proportionately what the potential costs might be.
And NIU is about the same size as we are. They have a much bigger membership than we do. And they are on dues deduct, and they are increasing on a regular basis right now.
Yeah, Irv said that NIU has dues deduct, and they're slightly larger than we are. They're number 2 in the state. Any other questions of me? If not, we'll move on in the agenda to the Treasurer's report. Unfortunately, our Treasurer, Chuck Stanislaw, couldn't make it today at the last minute, and he sent me by email the Treasurer's report, so if you'll bear with me, thanks to the wonders of modern electronics technology, I will read to you the Treasurer's report. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I got a message this morning at 8:14 a.m. from the Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, Mo Yin Tam, indicating that there will be an emeritus faculty reception and emeritus faculty center opening on November 2nd from 3 to 5 p.m. So those of you who hold emeritus status might want to mark your calendars. The Provost Tanner will be there, and there will be a presentation by our member Sylvia Vatuk from Professor Emerita, it should be, from Department of Anthropology. Okay, getting back then to, and I'm not even an English professor.
What time is that?
Okay. Let me see if I can get,
It's 3 to 5 in the reserve room of the library.
okay, thank you, Sylvia. I will put this on our website, this notice on our chapter's website. So let me see if I can find Chuck's message to me this morning, which was, here it is, okay. Now I will open the attachment and attempt to read it to you. Okay. Chuck is giving us figures for October 13th, 2010, and for comparison purposes, 1 year ago. The checking account currently has $9,075.23. This compares with last year's $1,643.31. The savings, let me finish. The savings account currently has $5,565.74. Last year at this time it had $2,323.79. And finally, the certificate of deposit. This year has $10,100.96. Last year had $25,135.20. My display keeps, okay, so, it doesn't sound right? Okay, so the total assets in the organization's accounts total currently $24,741.93. Last year at this time, $29,102.30. There are some notes which I cannot see. No, there are no notes. So I'm sorry I can't answer specific questions about the budget other than that. Chuck not being here. Let's move on. Is Bill Troyer here? No. Okay, then I'll ask Dick Johnson. Dick, where are you? Oh, there you are. Dick, please come forward and give us maybe a combined report on what's happening with legislation and with SUAA action.
I don't know where Bill Troyer is. He's supposed to be carrying the ball on this. But anyway, just about this emeritus meeting, I'm glad they chose it on a day that nothing else is going on, like a statewide election. Probably the most significant election that most of us have ever participated in. I think no one has to underscore the dreadful shape the state is in. And this will be editorializing it a bit, but given the array of choices, I think, particularly at the statewide level, it's hard to see much hope coming out of what happens next. I don't have my Scott Lee Cohen sign in my yard and don't intend to have it, but I would mention that at the state meeting, one of the candidates for governor did speak to us, and that is Rich Whitney. You all know who Rich Whitney is, right? He's the Green candidate, to me, he spelled out more sense than I've heard from the other candidates. Before I move on, I wanted to mention this thing about dues deduction. The fact of the matter is, and this is editorializing again, they just don't want to do it. They just do not want to do it. I tell my colleagues in various meetings, the University of Illinois can't do this because its computers aren't sophisticated enough to handle this monumental problem. It is done for the unions, I understand. That is correct, isn't it, Merrill? They do automatic dues deduction.
United Way.
What?
United Way.
Well, United Way, I don't want to take on United Way, but that is the fact of the matter. And it's very interesting in the discussions we've had, there are no cost figures. They say we don't have the resources. It's like being in China and the answer to many questions is not possible, not possible. So it's not possible in this state. Merrill has already given a good deal of reporting on the current situation. As I've said before, November 2 is a very important time. I hope that, I think it bears out the old adage that maybe what we're looking at is choosing the worst of evils, but I think that's an important kind of thing. I think there are some real differences in the state, and probably no matter who wins, the legislature will still be an important, will be the driving force in where the state goes in the next couple of years. So what I urge you to do is get out, see where your legislators stand, and make sure that you go to the polls on November 2nd.
You might also mention that early voting is already taking place. You vote today if you want.
Well, you can vote early voting,
Downstairs.
but it's not as much fun. But anyway, yes, Ralph?
I think I'd be interested in your view of this. I attended a meeting recently, the business community dealing with the budget situation. A panel of 4 guys, they had different views, but they all agreed on one thing was that the state income tax at this time is 3%. It has to go to at least 6% and probably 8%. That the legislature is not willing politically to do that. And I think they feel that a bankruptcy is clearly a possibility.
You have any other good news? I don't know whether this, I don't think the state can go bankrupt, actually. I mean, the state can respond to this problem, among other things, by raising more revenue. Now, it's somewhat frustrating to talk to candidates now. Nobody wants to talk about raising taxes. Well, that's understandable. I mean, but come November 3rd, then people are going to have to start talking seriously about raising revenue. Yes?
Well, I don't think, given the recession that we're in now, I don't think taxes should be raised. I think the federal government should be providing.
Cut off your mic here.
The what?
I'm going to cut off your mic here. Not raising taxes is not on our legislative platform this time. And I mean, if you just look at I understand the difficulties, but there's absolutely no way of cutting ourselves out of this situation we're in. You start talking about cutting the budget, fine. Let's talk about cutting. Well, there's higher ed has got a big part of that budget. I can think of some cuts that should be made, but I will not entertain you with those ideas. But it's a, I mean, there just are no answers. There are no easy answers. Now, the easy answer we've been doing for a number of years now. and that's called kicking the can or kicking the ball down the street. And now to mix metaphors and all that, the pigeons have come home to roost, and there's no escaping it now. Something has to be done. And it's going to be painful. If you talk about where does the state money go? Essentially in education and human services. State doesn't do much else. And so if we start talking about cutting our way out of this, then we have to seriously talk about cutting education and so forth. So, us.
Yeah, there's no reason for thinking about tax increase because our state per capita income is quite reasonably above the national per capita income. That's one factor, I think, for why. And secondly, our level of taxation is substantially low compared to the rest of the nation. So there's ample space there for power. And you're absolutely right. Cutting our way through this will be disastrous for particularly for
Now, for an opposing view, here's John McCluskey.
A supporting comment. You know, I've always taken the position that the state constitution says we can't be impaired or diminished. Well, according to Pew, Colorado had the same provision, and they simply passed a law saying, yes, we can. So, and then in the art bulletin recently, they talk about New Jersey, instead of, in addition to pension holidays, benefit holidays. I kind of take the position I'm willing to take 97, 96% of my pension.
Is that a motion? John has moved that 96% of his, or 5% of his pension be reduced. All in favor? Yes, Marcia.
But I'd like to come back to what we were presented with at our last Board of Directors meeting when Chapin Rose, this Republican representative, presented some of the ways that we would get out of this mess. And one thing that he said is that we would hold the line on new programs, because as you pointed out, cutting programs only means cutting more to education, more to healthcare, more to social services. I think we're sort of bare bones there. Borrowing some through bonds, and what was the other thing? No, not cutting. And the tax increase. So therefore, that would be a three-pronged approach. I think we'll probably end up doing all three of those to some extent, because it's painful, but at least it spreads the pain across more than one.
No, I think that's an important point. There is no single one answer. I mean, maybe raising income tax to 10%. I mean, that might do the trick, but obviously we can't do that. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to ask, you know, the thought was raising the income tax 1.5% or maybe more, but in real numbers, what do they think would help us get out of this? 10%. Like what percentage? 10, 2%, 3%, 5%?
I think anything on the table right now is not enough.
Pardon?
The governor's initial proposal was 1%, and there was, I think, the state senate passed a measure that would raise the income tax 2%. But this is not. I mean.
They said 10% in one.
Well, yeah. I mean.
Well, that's what is that projected down, what, 13 billion in debt? So 3 billion, so that's not enough.
No.
We have 7 billion.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we were at the SUAA meeting, the statewide annual meeting in June, there was a panel of lobbyists that made a presentation to us, and one of the lobbyists said that it was his expectation that after the election, there would be a relatively large increase in the state income tax from 3 to, he said 5%. But it would sunset before the next presidential election. You wonder why. So it would probably go into effect this January, last about 18 months till June 30th, 2012. And then the public would say, oh gosh, we're going back to 3%. Aren't these politicians wonderful?
Thank you. Yes, John.
One tax that I've been advocating that none of my, either my Senate member or my representative member.
Pardon me?
I had an idea that I bounced off of my state legislators, and they didn't agree with it. And that's a 1/4% sales tax for public education. Everybody pays into it. If you don't like it, another sales tax, you might say, oh, well, it's a one-time purchase over $1,000, maximum is a 1/4%. But I would generate a lot of money, and I don't think people would object to that.
Just so all that money would go into education.
That's right, exactly. How do you make sure
It's probably, yeah.
Just like the
Remember, we adopted the lottery because that money was going to go into education.
Right.
Well, it did go into education. Well, they pulled money out the other side.
Right.
Bill Troyer is here now for the featured presentation of this report, and I've been trying to hold the group together here, Bill, till you arrive. I did want to make one other point, though. The next big challenge will be the legislative session coming up. There'll be a veto session, and who knows what. They call it a veto session, but anything can come up during a veto session. So there will be some things coming up during the veto session. One important thing for us is borrowing money to pay this year's pension bill. This did not pass the legislature. It's not ideal, but it's a lot worse than having a pension holiday and not putting any more money into it. At least if you borrow money, there's a requirement to pay that back. But this legislative session is going to be very important, and my plea to you is talk to your legislators, see who's there after November 2nd, and start talking to them about the importance. Because one clear threat is changing the benefits of current employees. Now, that's what Eden Martin wants to do, but there are many, I think there are major constitutional legal issues involved, and so ultimately we may have to, we've been talking about raising money for SUAA action and all that sort of thing. We may have to put together a defense fund or something, along with other organizations and so forth. That we cannot allow that to happen. David.
We've been talking here about the need for a tax increase, but the arguments that are posed also say there's a major problem with the deficit, and to the average public, they see a deficit in the government as the same thing as their home deficit, and they don't want to support anything of that nature. On the other hand, we have to be aware that there are a lot of very good economists now who are talking about the deficit as a positive effect because of its potential for long-range payoffs. And so somewhere when we are talking about a tax increase, we have to also recognize that we have a bunch of people out there who are saying we must eliminate the deficit, federal or state. And if I may also, again, we have a problem in this state of a major deficit, but there's another state that has an even greater deficit, and other states as well that have something in this nature. So the problem is not just Illinois. We've got to keep in mind that we have a national problem out here.
Well, when we think about November 2nd, though, this is an Illinois problem that we have to address. Okay, Bill Troyer is the chair of Legislative Affairs for this chapter, and he's in charge of SUAA Action that raises all this money.
Well, I appreciate your keeping the group together. I don't know what you told them. I apologize if I repeat something. I appreciate Dick Johnson keeping things together. I don't know what Dick has told you. I apologize if I repeat anything. I think what I'd like to talk about, and just briefly, and then turn it over to you to questions, is our legislative contact program. Now, this is an idea that I think was born in Dick Johnson's mind, and
We're in trouble.
I think it's a very good idea. If you look at the makeup of the State House of Representatives and the State Senate, you'll find that most of the representatives of both kinds are above I-80. In fact, over 70% of the legislators in both houses are from above I-80. It so happens that UIC, of these 42 Senate districts that are above I-80, has a double-digit representation in about 30 of them, and probably one or less than 10 members. But that doesn't mean SUAA members. SUAA members are pretty well represented in all of these 42. So this gives UIC and SUAA, you know, a unique opportunity if we work hard enough to make some changes in the most populous base that elects the legislators. So we have developed, Dick has developed, a legislative contact person program. I have been trying to implement that for its first run. We have legislative contact people and people who have volunteered in most of the districts, but we still have a few that are uncovered, and that's, I'm talking about I-80, above those above I-80. Although we have legislative contact people in the southern districts. South in this case means south of I-80. What we have developed is what we ask of these contact people is that they do a couple of things. They go to fundraisers, for which the SUAA office in Springfield will send the check to the people, to the fundraiser holders, and that they get a group together if they can. If not, go singly and talk to their state rep and their state senator. And we provide some talking points on that subject, on the subject that we would like you to talk about. It's not they're talking points, but you know, how you put them together is you know, unique, and so that's where we are. I've mailed out 20 of these, I got 10 more ready to go. It occurred to me it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference if you get there before Election Day. Although I think you might, I don't know whether you get a more favorable hearing because people tend to pander to anybody who comes in their office before Election Day. Afterwards might be a good time to do it too, but it's got to somehow needs to be before the veto session starts. Anything can happen in the veto session, and the new legislature isn't going to take place, be constituted until mid-January. So if anybody wants to volunteer, see me afterwards, and I'll give you my digital assistant here in my pocket. You can put your name in. It's an old-fashioned digital assistant. I think with that, I'll throw it open for questions. Let me say that I've heard a lot about the pension problem, and a couple of weeks ago I attended a meeting that a group of businessmen that I happen to be a member of here in Chicago held, and it wasn't a very fair meeting to my people they had talking were the president of Abbott Laboratories, the former president of the Illinois Tool Works, and Eaton Martin, who most people know. Eaton Martin, I wrote to the president and said, you know, I agree we have a problem, but there are ways, there are many different solutions, and I don't think the people you've got listed as speakers embrace all of the different ways to get this thing solved. And she wrote back and said, well, we're not going to change speakers now. I suggested that they get Ralph Martiri to give probably a different point of view. But it was clear to me from listening to those presentations that, and I think they would agree with this formulation, that if the legislature had fully funded the pensions, we wouldn't have a problem now. Now, that's the cause of it, and in politics, as in other things, we don't necessarily treat the cause. We don't look backwards, don't look forward. You know, I'm trained as a physician, and one of the things we always like to have is the autopsy, and we learn by our mistakes. And the autopsies, even in today's high-tech world, give useful information in about 25% of the ones that are done. But by and large, they're not done. But anyway, that seems to me, you know, that the legislature didn't fund it. So I think that's the long and the short of it. And where we go from here is, I think, in part, going to be determined by how hard we work and how well we educate our legislators. Legislators, you might think legislators know everything about this. They probably don't know as much about it as you do, unless they happen to be on the pension committee in either the House or the Senate, or they're in a leadership position. And that group of people is probably at most 20 people in both houses. So the chances are that the legislator in your district doesn't know the ins and outs. In our packet, we've got a lot of reading material, but we have a sheet there that has seven talking points on it. And if you decide to visit your legislator, yeah, Sue Sindelar's got copies of that. But leave that with your legislator so that they'll have something to remind them about what we think is important. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Sue, membership?
Good morning. I'll be brief because some of this was already discussed earlier. Our current membership is 1,617, which is down from our spring meeting, and a lot of that has to do with what we discussed earlier in that we can't get our employees on dues deduct. So they're either on 1-year or 2-year memberships that continuously fluctuates our numbers. So we never have a nice firm number. We're constantly fluctuating. And a lot of it is, I think, SUAA sends out the notices, the Springfield office, to continue your membership. And I know when I was an employee, sometimes it got mixed up in the mail. I didn't get it all the time. And it's something as an individual that you don't essentially look for, if, that you wait for it to come to you. So that's something we have to continue to work on. Again, our dues deduct of our base is 44%. So 56% of our membership base are either on a 1-year or 2-year dues. We're facing 2 challenges. One that was discussed a lot was trying to get the university to do dues deduct for employees. I think the meeting that we'll be having in early March, I think it is going to be a good meeting because we're going to it with a joint effort with the Urbana campus, was something we've never done in the past. We always went as a chapter. This time we're going with the Urbana chapter. Springfield, our Springfield, University of Illinois Springfield currently has a chapter. They have no board members. So we'll hopefully represent that chapter as well in our discussions. Urbana is on board with doing this, so hopefully we'll be able to get it done or get some resolution on, and maybe, as our president said, maybe it's a matter of saying maybe the 2 chapters should be some funding towards it to get it done for the university. Our other challenges, of course, is continuing to retain our current membership base since we don't have the dues deduct for employees. So we look to you. What are we not doing that maybe we could be doing as a chapter for our members? Is there more information you would like to have from us? We'd like to hear from you. We did institute this year to try to increase our membership base an incentive program with the SUAA membership dues going up this year. We, as a chapter, agreed to keep it at the 2009 rate if you join. If you're retiring, you join with dues deduct, or if you're an employee, you join with a 2-year membership. We would keep your dues for the current year at the 2009 rate. We recruited some that way. We recruited about 60%. Again, only about 9% of those new members were on dues deduct. So, many of our members, Jimmy Jones is one who is really pulling in good members, but they're all employees, so they're on a 1- or 2-year membership. So he has to continuously solicit them to continue their membership. We also, this past few months, this year, we've done something that we've been trying to do for several years, and that is develop a very good relationship with UIC Human Resources. We need Human Resources to give us names of retirees, names of the employees. And this year, for the first time, we were able to write all the 2009 retirees asking them to join. That's the first time it happened. How successful we've been, it's still in the process. We've gotten a few new members that way. But that's something now that we have a good relationship with HR that we should be able to get every year is the list of retirees so we can solicit them directly, which is something we haven't been able to do before. We have a new brochure. It's in the back if you haven't received it. It's going to be going, with our good relationship with HR, it's also good that the brochure will be going to all staff and faculty orientations. So as employees come on board, they'll get the brochure, they'll know of us as they come into the door at UIC, which is something that's never been done before. And again, I ask you, as a body, what are we doing that you don't think, that you think we should be doing? More information in our newsletters, more information on just a regular basis, that we can help, that you can help us to retain our membership base and keep us as a board, as a chapter, well informed. Any questions?
I don't know to what extent, you know, I wouldn't want to say you're not doing something or that you should be doing something. I don't know what to do, but talking to people that I know who are still teaching, they
don't know of us.
Well, they know it exists, but the name, of course, is Annuitants Association. So right there, they feel, you know, even if they're aware, they think it doesn't apply to them. So I don't know if there's some way of, I don't know how to do it.
We've
People
done,
have to be aware
right.
that this really is something that involves them also, even though they're
Right.
not near retirement.
We've done ads in UIC News. We sent, not this year, but last year, we sent a letter to all the employees of UIC. What we get back, kind of a feedback, are more negative than positive. Why are you wasting the trees with this stuff? I mean, how many people on campus actually read UIC News? If there's, I think the best way of getting the word out is by you, by talking to your departments and talking to your colleagues and former colleagues.
I agree with this because I just retired 18 months ago. And whenever I got something from SUAA, I thought, well, that's not for me.
Right.
If it said in big red letters, protect your pension, I would have done something about it. But, you know, Annuitants is, well, that's just a club of people who are already out there. You know,
In our ads, we
I
do.
don't read your ads.
Yeah.
I don't read ads in newspapers. I don't read ads on websites.
But that's why we changed chapter name to UIC United.
Right.
Just for that reason.
Well,
That still doesn't help.
that's good to know for when we send out the letters to the 2010 retirees. Maybe we'll just put it across the top.
Yeah,
Or maybe
because
that.
all you have to read through all this stuff, it's kind of like, I don't have time to read that.
All right. Marcia.
I think another big problem with current employees, aside from they're not having any time, they do mix our organization up with SERVs. And actually, and they don't know anything about SERV either. I mean, it's not that they don't know about us, but they also don't know about SERVs. The fact that the name is so close, and we sort of do some things that are sort of tied and similar, and I think people are just, as she said, totally just not on board with it.
So it's education. We have to continually educate
And it has to
our employee base.
be not a lot short, because they don't have time.
Dick.
Yeah, I think we have to think about the message. And with current employees, we have to think about scaring the cheapers out of them. Because this is a crisis, and it's going to come back and potentially affect a lot of the current employees. And I think we ought to keep in mind the words of my esteemed former U.S. Representative, Rob Emanuel. It's a shame to waste a good crisis.
Is it possible to change the name to State University Employees and Annuitants Association?
Meryl, do you want to address the change?
Well, with respect to the name, I mean, we could change our constitutional name. We added this as part of our name. But as far as the state organization, the parent organization is concerned, I don't see any possibility of that in the offing. It's not, I haven't heard that issue surface at the statewide level. You know, the problem with the name. I'm sure other chapters deal with it too, but it hasn't risen to the level of that kind of concern. Yes, Dr. Fitzgerald.
One thing that would be nice to do immediately is to do immediately is to send out some way to both employees and applicants the record of those legislators on certain issues that they have done in the past and they're up for re-election.
That's a good point. Bill, Dick,
What did he say, Mayor?
a record of legislators on legislation that's of concern to us, like pension. Well, everybody in our chapter should know about SB 1946 from last March, that devastating
But
bill.
a lot of the employees don't know.
And
They're
also,
too busy with doing their job.
well, they'll find, sadly, that's the way it is in life, isn't it? You're concerned with what's in your immediate future. You don't think about 25 years hence until, unfortunately, the last minute. That's just human nature. Everybody's got major issues in their lives. They got to take care of the most depressing ones first.
And people have to take some responsibility for doing
Well-
the homework too. You can't do it for them.
Well, I think-
We do.
Yes, I think it's a good suggestion that we should try, maybe in our newsletter, to point out periodically the record of the legislators on specific legislation of concern to the membership. That's a good suggestion. Yes.
It
Anything
wouldn't be a bad idea to have a short synopsis in the school paper.
In which
The
paper?
School paper, the flame of the UIC.
Well, that's beyond our control.
Well,
but we can suggest
it.
Yes, okay. Mention that to our campus liaison person. Okay, we need to move on. I'm sorry to say we don't have much more time. Donna will give a brief program report. Donna Knudsen.
I just want to make a few announcements. Our Fall Brown Bag event is scheduled for November 11th. Professor Dick Simpson will talk about the 2010 election and what it means to you. We're looking at December 7th, 8th, 9th for the holiday luncheon. We'll be finalizing those plans shortly. And please see me if you have suggestions for topics, for speakers, for our spring programs. Do you have any questions?
What was the date for the holiday luncheon again?
7th, 8th, or 9th.
And unfortunately, this year it will not be at Costa's Restaurant. The late Costa's Restaurant, as I refer to it. Too bad. Newsletter report. Neither of our newsletter editors are here today, but Judy Curry sent me a brief report that I'll read to you. I hope everybody received a copy of our newsletter in the last week or so, with my column on the front and a nice essay by Larry Poston on the, what did he call it, the political, personally, the silly season. Okay, so as far as the newsletter is concerned, Judy says that we've been pleased with our newsletters over the past year, a good mix of campus, political, and member news. Larry Poston, the senior editor, continues with his outstanding contributions as writer and editor. Merrill Gassman has produced informative and prodding president's columns. And we are fortunate to have regular contributor John McCroskey, who's here today. John, where are you? Raise your hand. Who is so very knowledgeable about benefits and investments. Finally, we owe the high quality of our publication to UIC Publication Services. Kudos to Gerard Catronbone and the UIC mailroom. Kudos to Michael McGowan for their ever helpful advice. There are extra copies of the newsletter over there if you want to pick one up. I have no old business, unless someone has some old business to raise. Is there any new business anybody would like to bring forward? If not, we will adjourn now for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and then we will have our presentation by the SURS Executive Director, Mr. William Mabe. So if you'd like to take a quick break, you may do so, and then we'll reassemble in just a couple minutes.